Hello and happy Thursday. I can't believe we're already this far in the week.
Yeah.
Um, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn today. And we are talking all about kind of financially surviving divorce this month. And so we have Brenda Bridges on today, and she's going to be talking about kind of the cost of two households, which, yeah, things get expensive when you have to run two households.
Yep.
So Purse Strings is here every week to provide financial education. We bring on our Purse Strings approved professionals who are financial professionals who are approved by Purse Strings, who are vetted to serve the female market, who really want to empower more women financially. And so, yeah, Brenda Bridges is one of them. And so, would you give a little intro about yourself?
Oh, wow. Well, you know my name. Hi, I'm Brenda Bridges. I came to this work because I went through a divorce and post-divorce, looking back, there were so many things that could have been done differently. And I got educated about, I'm a divorce coach and a certified divorce financial analyst and a mediator and a collaborative professional. So I really went deep down the rabbit hole learning about um, different modalities of divorce and how to really help people through, hopefully, and this is going to sound a little funny, but making it suck less, right? Because
Yeah,
divorce is usually not a good thing no matter what, even if you're the
right.
person who is looking for the divorce. So how can we make it less damaging, less expensive? How can we make the process simpler and easier to understand? So that's my passion. That's where I work. And one thing COVID taught us is we can do that with anyone, anywhere. So a lot of the work can be done in markets that maybe didn't have divorce professionals who
Hmm.
operated that way. So
Right.
I work locally and in person and virtually throughout the country.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's so interesting learning from you and I like that, the different modalities of divorce. And it can be a less painful process, which is important. And, it's, it's nice on every end. That's just how it works.
As nice
Yeah.
as we can make it, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
it's not
much
like, oh, it's
simpler.
awesome. It's just like,
No,
let's
but
just make it make
it's life.
sense. Yeah, exactly.
So if you are going to go through that process and get divorced, now there's two households, and you're really just
Hmm.
running one of them, but it's expensive. And so, how should you prepare like before it actually happens?
Right. That's a really good question. And interestingly, it's one of the things people struggle with most,
Hmm.
especially after a long term marriage, because you're used to doing everything together. And there are certain economies of scale that once you take whatever household income you had and you're splitting it to support two distinct households, which often have a lot of duplication, you really
Hmm.
need to think through um, all the different aspects of, the four-letter word budget, which is not really, but it's just hard for people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
You need to think through it. So I look at it in phases. And at the very beginning of the divorce process, in most states, you put together something for your attorney that's called a financial affidavit. Each state has its own form. But what that really is looking at, and here's where the struggle often comes in, is it's looking at what is it going to cost each of the individuals, each of the parties, to have their own separate household,
Hmm.
and look at the kid expenses and how those, if they have children, and how those are going to be distributed or
Hmm.
doubled up between the households. So you might look at some things where it's going to be, kind of an even distribution. That money was being spent on food. It's going to be the same money, but it's split differently. But when you
Right.
start looking at things like healthcare,
Hmm.
which switches by necessity post-divorce. You can
Right.
COBRA for 36 months, but COBRA is very expensive.
Right.
So maybe that's when you start working with your professionals, your
Hmm.
team of people who have been through this before, who kind of shine the light on the questions to ask, and
Hmm.
you work through. We have a client intake form and a budget list that will go through each and every little thing, with like
Wow. Yeah.
from big things like what's your mortgage or are you going to rent, and homeowners insurance and all your utilities that we think of, down to little things like dry clean or salon,
Oh, wow.
because you got to take all of the things that have built your standard of living
Hmm.
into account as you're figuring out for both parties what's this going to look like moving forward. And then there might be things, healthcare is a good one. I actually had a case recently where the children were on the husband's healthcare and had been
Mhm.
because he had healthcare. The
Right.
mom, self-employed, did not have healthcare. So one would think, top line, kids stay with the dad on
Right.
healthcare. But when you dig into it and look at the options, she actually was better off. They saved about $400 a month putting the kids on her healthcare on the exchange because of the existing tax credits. So he went down to
Oh.
single coverage. She actually got better coverage for her and the kids on the exchange that cost less than if she got her own single payer coverage. So it's stuff like that that we just
Mhm.
really work through and figure out what's the best decision for you and your family. And that's the pre-divorce part, and you're estimating a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then once you are divorced, you have to actually do the untangling and paperwork of it. You know,
Mhm.
if the kids are on one phone plan and they're going to be on another, it's really looking at kind of who can get the best deal. And ideally, both spouses, going to be ex-spouses, are able to still communicate and figure out what's best overall for the family as they're making
Right.
these decisions, instead of like the health insurance situation, going to de facto, oh, you had them, you'll always have them. In that
Mhm.
case, that was the most expensive decision. So it made sense to kind of back out of it and look at it for those two different households. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like such an exhaustive list and so many things, then you have to deep dive into and compare, which definitely makes sense why you would have a professional because everything, I mean, there's a lot of depth and breadth when you go into kind of this project. Um,
Yeah.
and you want
And
it to be as even as you can, but then other things wash it out. So it seems like a
right,
lot.
it's a lot. CFO of the family, right? So one
Hmm.
person is taking care of the finances and the other person has taken care of other things, maybe the chief operating officer, right?
Right.
So for the person who's not used to taking care of the finances, there's a lot of leveling up to
Hmm.
um, really get a grasp on what the household bills look like. And it's not because they've been negligent or lazy or what have you. It's because there were two parties taking care of all this stuff as a team, and now they're
Right.
doing it solo. So they each have to, you know, have responsibility and
Hmm.
understanding, and in a lot of cases, some education,
Yeah.
just to know how to handle this. It's new,
And
the
it
financial splitting.
And you never really know it until you're actually doing it. As much knowledge as you get, you really just have to be doing it to really figure out everything going on. And so if you just haven't
Hmm.
been getting almost that like practice in, it's still just a learning curve for sure.
Yep, yep. And one of the things we do with our clients is after the divorce, we have a new normal meeting where we really are going through, okay, you're done with the divorce, but you're really not done. You're beginning.
Hmm.
Here's your new start. And here's a checklist of the things that you kind of need to tend to. And it can range from, updating your beneficiaries on all your
Hmm.
forms, or if you have life insurance and making sure that that's current because your family is in a new shape now. So that probably will change. Um, it can be, and on and on. It is actually a list that we run through. Okay, how about this?
Hmm.
And the clients decide, the parties decide, do we need to attend to that or not? Or, oh my gosh, I never
Right.
thought of that.
Hmm.
And you do it. And then
Definitely.
there are other, like we had talked earlier, there are other ways. And a lot of this is especially if they're kids, because you're going to be making financial decisions for a very long time, especially if they're young children. So
Yeah.
it helps people to have a plan in place for who is going to pay for what.
Hmm.
If we are going to true it up, if we've decided that we're going to split children's expenses pro rata, so by percent of income, are we going
Oh.
to talk about that every month, every week,
Hmm.
every year? Is it going to be in one joint account where we set up some guidelines, but we're still going to use it? Is one party going to pay for everything? Like all of that stuff ideally is figured out in the divorce process, but sometimes it's not even attended. It's a
Right.
very top line, like, oh, we're going to split kids' expenses. Well,
That's
if
that's a
you,
lot. Is it sports and braces and clothes and shoes and the
and
camping
where's the
trip
cap?
yeah, I might give them $40 when they go out, but you might not. And so it's like, does that money come out of the pot or what?
Exactly.
It seems like there's a lot of things to think about. So is this part of then like that second list afterwards? You kind of help plan some of this out
In
and
that
prepare for this
case,
cost?
ideally that's done before the divorce is final.
Mm,
Ideally that's written. The more, like, you don't want a settlement agreement that is so, ironclad, there's no room, because we don't know
right,
what life is going to hand us, especially you're getting divorced. That was not anyone's plan when they got married. You don't know
right,
what life is going to hand you. But if you have enough shape to it that when something comes up, like, maybe a child gets into a sport that's really expensive,
hmm,
is there a framework for how that's going to look? Is
right,
there a cap on however many hundreds or thousands of dollars it's okay to spend, and then after that you really have to mutually agree, because one
right,
party might not be able to afford it, and to be
yeah,
locked into, I have to pay half of, you know fill in the blank, when
right.
that's half my income, that's a scary place to be. So the
It,
more that can be done before the divorce is final, I feel the better. Um,
hmm,
it allows a less chance for arguments down the road, and more of a safety net, that both parties know how they can go about making their financial decisions, because they've already talked about what that's going to look like.
right, right. It's all about having these conversations, being open and
Hmm.
transparent, which is much harder to do at this time, but
Right.
it's very important to do. So how do you kind of prioritize figuring out your new cash flow?
Sometimes it's a lot of hard decisions. Like I said, we start with that financial affidavit. It's really starting
Hmm,
with, let's list out all the possible expenses,
hmm,
that you've had in your current standard of living.
right.
And then it's really, and this is not unlike doing a financial plan or a
Hmm,
retirement plan. It's just a really specific set of parameters. So you look at your absolute needs, right? You need food, shelter, clothing. You look at the
hmm,
kids' needs, same. And then you start layering on, and it's really got to be a balance. And it
hmm,
sounds simple to do, but sometimes it's hard to make these decisions. You have to look at the money that's coming in, or the planned money that's coming in,
right.
and what's going out. And if there's a deficit there, then you have to start looking at, I've been spending this money on, getting a manicure every week. Well, maybe that's out.
Right.
I've been spending this money on going to the gym. That's really important for me and my health and my well-being. Where else can I cut? Because I need to do that. And it's going really through all the discretionary parts of your expenses, and making those decisions until you're at a place where you're not deficit spending, you're not spending more that's coming in, and
Hmm,
even better, you're saving some. You're
yeah.
putting some money aside, so you have an emergency fund. So you are saving for retirement. So you can take a vacation at some point. It's looking at all of those things and being able to project out how life is going to look 5, 10, 20 years down the road. And
Hmm,
that's a lot of the work that a CDFA will do when
yeah.
they're working with people through a divorce. Is, it's not just, we're going to put everything in a pot and divide it in two and move on. It's, let's really look at how this plays out for both
Right.
parties and how things look down the road.
And that's why a CDFA, just a little plug here, can be super helpful, is because you have that extra knowledge about these finances and divorce, and have that specialty to really, you've done this before. You know the list to go through. You know these details and those things to really look at and what's most important.
Right. And CDFAs, look, we're there to complement the
Hmm,
team. We're all better with the team, and having your right professionals supporting you in your right space. We are not attorneys, nor should we be. Attorneys know the law, but a CDFA might come up with some really creative, flexible, viable solutions to what's happening in your finances.
hmm,
And you might need, a divorce coach just to help walk through the process and take some of
right.
that anxiety out of, well, how does this work, and what's going to happen next, and what do I
Yeah.
need to do, at a really pressure filled time in life. So it makes sense to me that you wouldn't have your electrician do your plumbing.
Exactly.
So, don't have your attorney be your therapist.
But they might need to talk
you
together
up.
now and then just to make sure the whole
They
house is
right.
complete.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Definitely.
Exactly.
So I know some women going through divorce, think they should have enough money to live on, but it's money that they can't quite access right now through like
Yep.
liquidity or penalties and things like this. Can you kind of dive into this and explain how to help there?
Yeah. So when we're looking at a settlement, we're looking at how assets are going to be divided and how income is going to flow. We want to look at those expenses. What does it cost to live? But where is that money coming from? So if you divide it into two columns, at the bottom, they both look even, awesome. Except what if everything in one column you can't touch without penalties for 15, 20 years? They're not even then, right?
Right.
And oftentimes people don't understand that in the settlement, that they could actually end up paying to have that money. The other thing that I run across is people might look at their settlement and go, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. I'm in good shape. So, let's just make up some numbers. Maybe their settlement is $700,000. Oh my gosh, like my father worked his entire life and never saved that much money. That's awesome. I'm in good shape. Well, if 500,000 of that is in house equity, that you have to sell the house to get it out, and 200,000 is left, maybe that's in a retirement account. If you take that out, you're going to pay tax on it, and you're going to pay a penalty if you're before 59 and a half. So let's chop up 30% of that 200. So there, you just lost another $60,000. I hope I'm doing the math on the fly correctly.
Sounds good so far.
I'm not. Call me on it if I'm not. So now you're down to $140,000, no retirement savings, and maybe you spend $100,000 a year to live in that $500,000 house. How far is your $140,000 going to go? So it's looking at things like that. Where is it? It's really a lot of, is it viable? Like, how does it really play out? It sounds like a lot, but it may not support the lifestyle that you're used to, and then you have to start making some of those. It might not be viable, it might not be usable. So maybe we look at that same estate overall and we reconfigure it. So we look at a different way of arranging that settlement so both parties are able to live on money.
I mean, that makes sense.
Surprised.
Yeah.
And the surprise is hard. If after a settlement, I will have a lot of people come, and I'm sorry, but people will come to me and go, oh my gosh, I wish I knew you 5 years ago. Because they found out later that, that $700,000 was really only $140,000 that they could live on. That kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, sometimes paying that professional upfront can totally be worth it, because they have this knowledge and expertise, which will save you a lot in the long run. But it's interesting to learn, every dollar is not always the same worth almost. You can't just pull money out of the house. You can't just pull money from these different accounts and act like every dollar is the same worth, which is kind of hard to grasp sometimes, but then once you figure that out, it shows how you do have to kind of be tactical in these different situations, because like you said, otherwise you don't really have enough money to pay all your bills or whatever that may be.
And I find people, once they have a plan, even if they're making some really hard decisions in that plan, when they have a plan, they feel better. Like they can handle more. There's more resilience because they know what they're dealing with at this time when there's so much unknown. So just having okay, I might not like it, and maybe I'm going to have to make some really hard decisions, but it's empowering to know what you're actually dealing with.
Definitely.
The facts.
To know where you're at, to know where you're going to go, and to kind of make that plan. There was one more question I had for you. One was thoughts on how to stay out of trouble financially as you try to get yourself up to speed. Can you help us out?
I would say find an advisor who you are comfortable working with who has your back. There is someone out there for everybody.
Right.
You might not have a $2 million estate, and some advisors might require that. You might have, something much smaller. You might actually be on the verge of being in debt. There are coaches for that.
Yep.
I really think there's purse strings for that. There's a plethora of knowledge. Just go on the website. There are purse strings advisors. So shameless plug for purse strings. But, we come to this place because we want to help women handle their finances, have a level of comfort with it, make sound decisions. So, first step, get yourself educated and take control. And it's hard. But if people are sitting back in kind of victim mode, it's probably not going to have a good outcome. And I know divorce is scary and it's unknown, and it can be really painful and long lasting. Every little step one takes forward to take control back and make their own decisions is going to be a positive step. I would say don't get upset if you make mistakes.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Mistakes happen. As long as you're trying to be educated and make informed decisions. So you made a mistake, move forward,
Right.
Have a team, get educated, and just keep trying to do a little better. Keep trying to move forward. I think there is a tendency post-divorce for at least a time to be unrealistic about this new normal, right? Your new space, where it's, I used to be able to do all these things and now I can't afford it. The sooner you can get to the place of, oh, okay, this is really what I'm working with, and live within those means, those boundaries, the more control you'll be able to take. And again, you'll be better established and set up to move forward and make this life the life that you want to, where you're making your decisions.
Right.
And I'll backtrack a little on that one, and because a lot of this is okay post-divorce. While talking about pre-divorce, know your options and be realistic. Know the laws of your state. Have people who are familiar with what a settlement can look like really walk you through. Don't spend a lot of money on professionals trying to fight for something that would never hold up in the court in your state.
Yeah.
You might be angry, you might be hurt, you might be emotional, but if the chances are that's wasted money on professional fees and it's never going to happen because the law doesn't support it, hard lesson, but try to find that out, because then you're not spending extra money.
Yeah.
Flip that too. Like, if you are entitled because you've been married for 29 years and as a joint decision decided that you were going to stay home, and the spousal support or maintenance or alimony, whatever your state calls it, allows you to have support so you can move into what's next, not at poverty level. Know that and be okay saying, I contributed over all of these years in my way to this household.
You sure did.
Is of value. And
you sure did.
It is of value. It is not oh, we're done now. Been good. See you later. So,
thanks for raising my kids, and talk later.
Yeah. Enjoy that retail job. It's hard, and I also see a lot of it's exhausting. So during the process, someone in that situation might just be like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I just went out. I'm done. But if you're making those decisions without looking at, okay, you're done, but how are you going to pay your rent and your groceries? Don't undermine yourself or self-sabotage.
Right.
A lot of this just goes back to get the information. Like, get information, get a good team.
Yep.
And then make decisions. And don't wander through blindly. And there's a book that I really don't like very much that's called Think Financially, Not Emotionally, essentially about the process. I disagree, because it's an emotional process.
Right.
I think acknowledge your emotions, know that you're going through them, and you will continue to go through them probably for years. and then think logically, but acknowledge the emotions and try to sit with all these decisions you're making all at once. Try to sit with them. You're like, is it coming from a place of, fear, revenge, anxiety? Like, where's it coming from? And then what's the logical point of view? Like, how am I coloring this? I think that's really important as you walk through what is to most people a brand new process, that's full of unknowns.
It's a bunch of really good advice. I mean, I'll just let you keep going, it's
I
very,
can just talk and talk and talk on this.
I mean, it's very
right?
inspirational. It's a hard point to be at, but I definitely think, if you have your resources and you align yourself with the right team, especially other empowering women like yourself, I mean, you can really come out better probably than you thought you could have. And which is important to have that team, to have those supporters. Because you can get down on yourself. It can be a hard process. But you need those cheerleaders to kind of keep you up and keep you going, and you got to keep moving forward. You got to get over the hill either way.
Right. It's gonna like life is going.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta get through it. So get a good team, get some education, and just keep pushing forward.
And don't shit all over yourself, right? We say that all
there
the time.
You go.
Just don't do the, oh my gosh, I should know this. Well, why? You were doing, raising kids, volunteering, teaching school, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a reason that you don't know it. Don't beat yourself up if you're not intricately familiar with your finances. You can learn that. You can learn it.
Right.
And you can get people who are there to help you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, back to the electrician and plumber. I'm not going to be doing my own. I'm not going to be doing my own wiring and plumbing because there are people who know that stuff. So we don't need to.
If you tried, it's going to waste time and money.
Yeah.
So Brenda, if people have more questions or they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
On my website. So my website is Bridging Divorce Solutions for divorce work. My other website is Bridging Wealth Solutions for financial work. And they can just make an appointment. There's a button there. You can pick a time on my calendar and we can chat. And, I do love being a resource for people. So I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But I might know someone who is. It's that Purse Strings is a network, and we are part of a group of women who want to continue supporting and educating. So, look on the Purse Strings website, reach out to professionals who you feel a bond with. And if someone is not making you feel supported, move on. Find someone who will, because they are there. There are a lot of professionals who dedicate themselves to helping women. Barb being one, too. I mean, it's a team. So look for the folks who will support you. And I would be happy to be one of those people.
Awesome. Yeah, we love having you on here, Brenda. I really appreciate all this education and support you have given women today. So don't be afraid to, give Brenda a call, give any of our professionals a call, just have a conversation, and tune in again next week, as we'll be having a couple more divorce conversations this month, and reach out if you have questions. But until then, we'll talk soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.